amazing how clueless most buyers and sellers are about the three forms of representation that exist. Most buyers or sellers, when they meet with an agent, believe that they are a client, but are you really a client or are you a customer? So let's first start exploring the concept of customer and client. We're going to read the definitions directly from Merriam-Webster dictionary, and you can see that online. Customer, someone who buys goods or services from a business. Very general. So now let's look at the definition of client. A person who pays a professional person or organization for services, or a customer in a shop or hotel. The full definition of client is one that is under the protection of another, a person who engages the professional advice or services of another, i.e., a lawyer's client. So, are you a client or are you a customer? Well, let's explore the three forms of representation before we can answer that question. The first form of representation is no representation. So let's look at that. It's called no brokerage relationship notice here in Florida. And I'm going to read it directly here. These are the duties of an agent who is representing you in a no brokerage relationship notice. Dealing honestly and fairly, disclosing all known facts that materially affect the value of residential real property which are not readily observable to the buyer, and accounting for all funds entrusted to the licensee. As you can see, this definition is very vague, and especially the dealing honestly and fairly. Well, what is fair and what is honest? If you ask 5 different people, you'll get 5 different answers. Now, as far as disclosing all known facts that materially affect the value, that is very clear. But it goes on to say which are not readily observable to the buyer. Well, if you're a buyer who doesn't have experience buying real estate, if you see a crack, what is your interpretation of a crack? Is that a structural crack? Is that a cosmetic crack? If you see a wall leaning, do you actually see that wall leaning? I mean, that could go on and on and on. This doesn't say anything that is very specific. It's very vague. So really, you're not going to get a whole lot with this form of representation. So under this no brokerage relationship disclosure, you can clearly see that you're definitely not a client. I mean, you can't compare the level of service and the relationship that you have with an attorney to what we just read. So obviously you are a customer in this type of relationship.